All right, so let's get started. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining this session about the future of ColdFusion. So we'll discuss about the next version, which is ColdFusion 2020. So we have had some interesting code names in the past. So I just want to quickly go over all the code names that we've had in the past. And if you do have any interesting code name suggestions for ColdFusion 2020, do let us know in the chat pod. I just want to quickly make sure if everything is fine. You can hear me. Okay, yeah, looks like it's all fine. All right, so we'll go through some of the code names, the interesting code names that we've had in the past. ColdFusion 8. Anybody remembers what the code name was for ColdFusion 8? It was the Scorpio. And anybody remembers the Scorpio man from CF United? Yes, that was Ben Forta coming on stage as a Scorpio man at the CF United conference back then. So that's ColdFusion 8. What about ColdFusion 9? What was the code name for ColdFusion 9? Anybody? Yes, that's correct. I think few of you got it on the chat pod. ColdFusion 9 was Centaur, so that was the code name for ColdFusion 9. What about 10? What was the code name for ColdFusion 10? Yes, that's correct. It was Zeus. Zeus was the code name for ColdFusion 10. What about 11? Anybody? 11? 11 was the only one that did not fall into this mythological god names as such. The code name for ColdFusion 11 was Splendor. What about 2016? What was the code name for ColdFusion 2016? Somebody wants to see Ben Forta as Centaur. Some Japanese monster, David says. Okay, yes, really close. It was called Raijin. It was the Japanese god of thunder. So that was ColdFusion 2016. And what about the most recent one, ColdFusion 2018? That's correct, John. So it was called Ether. So these were the various code names that we've had in the past. As you can see, Roman gods, Greek gods, Japanese gods. So this is kind of the theme that you have followed for ColdFusion for quite some time. So if you do have this, we are very close to finding a code name for ColdFusion for the next version of ColdFusion. So if you do have any interesting suggestions, do let us know. But yeah, maybe even after the session as well, once you get to understand as to what ColdFusion 2020 brings to you. All right, so ColdFusion has been around for a really long time now, 25 years this year. I'm sure we'll celebrate it at the summits this year, this being the 25th year. Now, the reason why ColdFusion has been able to be successful for such a long time is at the key points, we've been able to pivot the product. So that's one of the reasons why ColdFusion has been successful for over 2.5 decades. Right from its inception, with DBML being able to access database so easily when accessing database through CGI programming was super hard, or other technologies was super hard. Then even before jQuery came into existence, there was this Ajax programming within ColdFusion that made Ajax programming super simple. The same thing with HTML5, similarly with API management. So that is how ColdFusion has been able to evolve over the last more than 2 decades. It's been able to make the significant shifts at the right point of time. Now, we are at a juncture where it's also really important for us to make significant transformations to the product to last for the next decade, to be relevant for the next decade. So that is what ColdFusion 20 represents. It's a significant shift from what you've seen in the product. All interesting shifts, I'm sure most of you will agree once you see all the changes that we are planning to make in ColdFusion 2020. I just want to quickly make sure that there's no problem as such on this. Yes, okay. Looks like there's no issue. Okay, so as I said, ColdFusion 2020, we are planning to make some significant revamp to the entire product itself in terms of how the installation works and all of that. So I'll talk about that in just a bit. Even before I get into the details of ColdFusion 2020, this is just a quick snapshot of where the world is heading towards. So back in the days, we had the physical machines, right? So all of us understand this. We used to have this giant physical machines where you had to kind of manage the hardware, manage the individual machine instances yourself, and on top of that, on top of the machine instances, you had to kind of manage the application servers as well. So it would involve significant costs, and it also involved significant effort working with the physical machines. Then came in the virtual machines, and all of us know this. It was an abstraction over the hardware. You just have to deal with individual VMs and application servers on top of it and manage a combination of application servers and machine instances. Then came in cloud, where you don't even have to deal with virtual machines anymore because you had this individual cloud instances. You didn't have to deal with the virtualization software, install it on the hardware, none of those. So you just request for an individual instance. The virtual machine also got kind of abstracted. So you just get a machine instance and application servers. You just have to deal with application servers and management associated. Then came in the world of containers, where you no longer have to deal with monolithic application servers as well. You just have to deal with individual applications or individual microservices and kind of manage the microservices. So that's what containers brings in. And post that, we also have serverless, where you don't even have to manage individual containers. You just post your code and the code runs like a function as a service kind of a scenario, right? So this is how the world is progressing towards. So serverless, obviously there are a lot of limitations still, but it's catching up in terms of where the world is headed towards. So we clearly understand that in order to be relevant for the next decade, this is the region where we have to play. It's cloud, containers, and serverless. So bulk of the focus here is on cloud, containers, and serverless. You'll hear me speak about each of these going forward. All right. Okay, so before we get into the details, I also want to highlight some of the key web application technology trends as well. By 2022, so this is what IDC predicts. By 2022, 90% of all the new applications will feature a microservices architecture. So what I mean by microservices is you'll no longer have this giant monolithic applications. The applications themselves will be split into microservices, and what it gives you is the ability to design, debug. So whenever you face an issue, you just have to fix the issue or debug the issue in a single microservice. Updation becomes super easy. So all of that advantages will come in with a microservice architecture, and in the next couple of years, we will notice that bulk of the new applications, or a significant majority of new applications, will feature a microservice architecture. One other trend that is happening right now is also building cloud native applications, and this will only increase going forward as well. By 2022, 35% of all the production applications, so this is a huge share, 35% of all production applications will be cloud native. So what I mean by cloud native is it accesses the individual services associated with the cloud. So it's not just deploying ColdFusion on the cloud, but it also the ColdFusion application, let's say, will leverage all the services on the cloud. It will be fully cloud native. By 2022, we'll also see that the top 4 clouds will host like 80% of all the PaaS and IaaS deployments. So we'll only have 4 clouds. We'll not have multiple competitors. There'll be significant consolidation that will happen. And what's also interesting is our customers, so basically many of our ColdFusion users will also want to significantly reduce their risk and go multi-cloud. So not just get locked into a single application. So 60% of the applications will be multi-cloud as well. So you'll use this on not just one single cloud provider like the AWS, but you will try to get into Azure as well, and so that you're not locked into a single cloud. So this is how the web technology trends indicate going forward. So this is from IDC. Okay, I'm just quickly checking. So there's no issue with the audio. You can hear me well, right? On Connect. Awesome, great. Okay, let me just get back to my presentation. So those are the various interesting web application trends for the future. Now, I just want to highlight the vision that we have for ColdFusion 2020. We'll soon have a code name for this as well. So this is the vision, to be the modernized platform of choice. So clearly, there's a significant focus on modernization because, as I said, the whole idea is to be a futuristic platform for the next decade. A modernized platform of choice for building cloud native. So there's significant emphasis on building cloud native microservice applications with absolute focus on ease of use. So it will continue to be really, really productive when compared to anything else out there. And also what's interesting is without getting locked to a particular cloud provider. So there will be focus on multi-cloud as well. So clearly the keywords are modernization, cloud, and microservices. So the way I'll structure my presentation as well is, so I will go over each of these on modernization, cloud, and microservices as well. So that's how I'm going to structure the presentation. So this is the outline. So if you do have any kind of questions, post it on the chat pod, guys. So we do have a few people from Adobe, Alicia's around. I saw a few others from Adobe as well. So they will respond to your questions, and I will take a look at all the questions at the very last so that we can discuss it at the very last as well. We will have some time for questions at the very end. Okay, so this is going to be my outline for the presentation today. We will talk about the focus areas for ColdFusion 2020, which will be microservices, cloud, modernization. So that is how I've divided my presentation as well. And there will be significant focus on productivity, performance, and security. So this is something basic that is available with every version of the product, and we continue to drive the access on productivity, performance, and security in ColdFusion 2020 as well. So starting off with microservices. As I said, the whole idea of microservices is that you should be able to split your giant application or build applications in such a way so that you focus on building individual services that interact with each other, that can be independently scaled. Now, to build such a kind of a microservice application, you can't build that on a monolithic platform. So ColdFusion is monolithic today. So we are going to significantly change that. So for the first improvement you will notice is massive reduction in the installer size. So we were more than a gigabyte in terms of installation. So you'll see us go to a significant reduction, may not be as close to less than 50 MB because the JRE itself takes a lot of space, but we will aim at getting to a really low figure. So let me just show you what's the current progress that we have. Just get off this. Yeah, so installation itself will be a simple zip file. So the way I installed today is, so this is how the installation will look like. It's just a simple zip file. You unzip it. So this is what the progress was a month ago. So it was the zip file was like some 300 MB. But we have made significant inroads. So when I installed the installer, or rather unzipped the installer today, it was just 248 MB. So our engineers are making significant inroads into reducing this even further. So all you have to do is just unzip it and then start using it. Isn't it super easy? You no longer have those massive installation steps, none of those. So it's super simple, just unzip it and start running a script, and then you'll get the various things working. So it's going to be as simple as that. Do you guys like it? Any feedback on the chat board? That's great, awesome. So we are in the progress of reducing it to a much lower size. So that's the installer size, guys. Okay, modularity. So this is going to be really important. So ColdFusion, the runtime itself can't be a monolithic when you're focused on building microservice applications. So what we are looking at is ColdFusion will be broken down into multiple tiny modules. Okay, so let's say you're building a microservice application that just does PDF conversion. You don't need anything to do with database when you're dealing with, let's say, PDF conversion. You don't need anything with Java integration or spreadsheet manipulation, none of that, because your microservice is just focused on, let's say, HTML to PDF conversion. So what we are trying to do is the entire ColdFusion runtime will be split into multiple modules, and PDF also happens to be one of those modules. Now you can just install the bare runtime, and we will have a ColdFusion package manager. It's called a CFPM, inspired by the Node package manager, NPM. So we will have CF package manager, using which you can install the required modules. So in this case, just install the PDF module and you're all set. So that is how everything will be broken down. So I'll show you a demo of this as well. So it's going to be completely command line, and there's a GUI based installation as well. So we will have some kind of a GUI mechanism as well, but for now we just have a command line mechanism. So let me just show you this. I already have CFPM running here. So okay, so I've run the CFPM, which is a batch file on Windows available within the bin directory. So I've launched it. So this is called CFPM. So CFPM has various commands available. For instance, to install a particular module, all you have to do is install and say module and give the module name and the version. If you don't specify the version, the latest version will be installed. So let's go ahead and list all the modules available. So let's say I'll go ahead and say list all. You'll see a whole bunch of modules. So this is some of the new stuff that we're doing. I'll talk about that in just a bit. This is all AWS DynamoDB, AWS SNS, all of that. Along with that, you will see that there are various other modules, SAML, scheduler, whole bunch of stuff. Now, if I want to install, let's say, a module, so all I have to do is just say install, and why don't I install the SQL Server module? So let's say install SQL Server module. And what's happening in the background is it is actually downloading from an Adobe repository and then installing it right there dynamically. You don't even have to restart the server. It's all dynamically done, and that's it. I have the SQL Server module installed. To uninstall, all I have to do is just say uninstall and give the same SQL Server, just simply uninstall the bundle completely. So similarly, if you want to install the PDF module, you have to say install PDF. So that's how it works. It's as simple as this, completely command line based. All right, so this is some significant shift. So this is not a simple thing, right? So what we're trying to build is a massive shift from what you've seen in the past. So our engineers are doing an amazing job of breaking it into various modules, reducing the installer size. So this is some groundbreaking stuff, right? So from what you've seen from the previous installations or previous versions of ColdFusion. So that's what we want to do with this new version. So take it into a completely different league altogether, and also significantly differentiate from competition as well. And I'll come to that in just a bit. So this is all about modularity from within the command line using the CFPM, which is the ColdFusion package manager utility. So that's all about modularity. Again, for your microservices, this is super helpful because, as I said, if you just want your microservice to just focus on a single service, let's say PDF, you can just install the PDF module and not install anything else. All right, so how do we roll this out? This is a significant shift, but how do we roll this out? So we have 3 different modes in which we will roll this out. So there is obviously, it's not just about new applications, right? Considering ColdFusion's history, there is a significant set of old applications that continue to work with the new version. So we will have a full-blown version as well. So using the ColdFusion package manager, you can specifically say that, give me everything that I need. Just make it backward compatible with what's available with the previous version. So just give me all the modules. So there will be a full-blown version as well, using which you can get all the modules straight away, and your existing applications will continue to work as is. The second thing is we do have a code scan utility. Now this is really important if you think about how your CI/CD pipeline for microservices would work. So what you typically have is you will have, let's say, a code repository, and your developers go ahead and make a check-in into your code repository, and this code repository check-in will trigger a series of CI/CD pipeline, right? Like we know. So now in that, so we do have a utility that we have provided that will scan your existing application and figure out the set of modules needed, and it will spit out a file. And that file, if that is fed into CFPM, it's going to install all the required modules for your code. So you don't have to go figure out what modules are needed for your application code. Isn't that super easy? So we will have a code scan utility that will scan your application, figure out the modules, and you just need to pass that to the ColdFusion package manager. So let's say during a new check-in, if you have a new microservice that leverages a different module, the code scan will figure out that there's a new module needed. And if you pass that file to the ColdFusion package manager, so that particular module will also be downloaded and installed. So that's the code scan. The third one is the runtime check. So this is typically during development. So when you run a particular file, if that, and let's say that CFM file is making use of, again, let's say a PDF module that's not even installed. So you will get an error message saying that the PDF module is not available. So you'll have to actually go install the module. So there's a runtime check as well. So this is only during development time though, not for your production service. So using that runtime check, you can go ahead and install that corresponding module and then get that CFM file working. So this is how we'll roll it out, because we completely understand that we are changing quite a few things, but we also want to make sure that existing applications will continue to run as is, and also it should facilitate newer applications as well through code scan and runtime check. So this is how we'll roll it out to you. Similarly, we have a really interesting configuration tool. So again, in the microservices world, you basically need a scriptable deployment. You should be able to script your settings completely, not necessarily log in into an administrator and then choose what setting you want. Everything has to be completely scripted. This is not just for microservices. I'm sure many of you sysadmins out there will agree. You need a simple script file using which you can pretty much configure all your servers. So that is the utility that we are coming up with called CF Setup. The name of the utility is called CF Setup. Just like the CFPM for package manager, the CF Setup for configuration. All the settings will be loaded in a single JSON file, which includes your Tomcat settings, your JVM settings, all the NeoXML files that we have within ColdFusion. All of that will be available in a single JSON file. And there are various commands available for this configuration tool, like show, set, add, all of that. And also too, Docker images, the new Docker images that we will have for 2020 will honor this JSON file. So as soon as the Docker image comes up, it will load all the settings from the single JSON file. Beyond ColdFusion 2020, we are also looking at a centralized configuration and administration. So why should individual ColdFusion servers have its own administrator? So just like how we're doing with performance monitoring toolset, where there's a central repository for all your performance needs, can we have a centralized configuration using which your individual servers or individual servers can actually pick up a configuration from a centralized server. So we are looking at coming up with a centralized configuration and administration as well beyond ColdFusion 2020. But this is not for the next version. This is some part of the future versions as well. But in this one, we do have this configuration tool. Okay. So let me just show you a demo of the configuration tool as well. So it's called the CF Setup. So this is the CF Setup tool. Okay. So if you hit the CF Setup, it'll bring you into a CF Setup mode, and I can choose what instance I need as well. So I have a bunch of commands. I'll just show you a few. Okay. So to get the value of a particular instance or a particular runtime setting, so I just need to say CF Setup, get me this runtime, get me this setting application variables from the runtime, and it'll give me true. So it's displaying the value of a particular runtime setting. I can also go ahead and set the value as well. So let me just show you that. CF Setup, you can do it and set the value as well. So everything can be scripted. So this is You can set your data sources value, the mail server, all of that can be completely scripted using this command line utility. And as I said, all the settings will be stored in a single JSON file. So you can actually, so let me show you the show setting as well. So this will show you all the runtime settings from the command line. So say CF setup, show, runtime. So it's going to be, it will show me all the runtime settings available. Okay. So I can also export the settings from one server to another. So what this does is it's going to export all the debug settings. Okay, so from this server that I've specifically selected right now into a debug.json. So all the debug settings will get into debug.json. So exporting debug, export successful. Once I export, I can also import from this JSON file into the server. So really useful and powerful configuration tool called the CF setup. So so far we have seen the CF package manager and the CF setup tool using which you can pretty much set up your entire server. All right. So let me get back to my presentation. So that was a configuration tool that we saw. So that's the microservices. So let's move on to the cloud. Okay, so these are the various services that we have that we will be supporting in ColdFusion 2020. So there will be native integration with all these services on both AWS and Azure. The nice thing is the same code works across AWS and Azure. Now, this is a significant differentiator when compared to competition. So if you use any of the SDKs, you're pretty much locked into, let's say, AWS's SDK for AWS. And if you have to deploy some part of your application, let's say on Azure, you pretty much have to rewrite the application and use the Azure SDK, right? But with this, what we're doing is we're providing a common interface. First of all, an extremely productive interface. I'll show you some code so that you'll get a sense. So extremely productive than any other technology out there, and also it has a common interface. So you can use the same interface or same code across AWS and Azure for the common functionality. For instance, let's say storage. So Azure has storage as well, and AWS has storage as well. Now, if you have to build a multi-cloud application, which is a bet that we're making there about the future, you may not be building multi-cloud applications today, but you will certainly, we strongly believe that in a few years' time, there will come a time where you will have to move applications across and have some part of your microservices on Azure and some part of it in AWS, because multi-cloud, the CIOs are already thinking about multi-cloud and how to address the challenges associated with multi-cloud. And we want ColdFusion to be in a position that can handle the challenges of multi-cloud of the future. So storage, the same interface works across AWS and Azure. We're looking at storage, database, NoSQL, caching, messages and notifications across AWS and Azure. And we'll not just stop at the common functionality across AWS and Azure, we'll go deep as well. So there will be native integration with various AWS services and AWS's capabilities across AWS and Azure on these various services with ColdFusion 2020. So let me just show you some of the code available. So let's start with storage. So AWS S3. So it is AWS on the storage side. So S3 is AWS's storage solution, and this Azure calls it Blob. So this that's Azure Blob as well for storage. Now let's see how the code looks like with ColdFusion 2020. Okay, so I'll just go to storage, s3.cfm. So you will notice that there is something called as a storage service. So you will have something called as a cloud service as well, which is a built-in function, and you have to pass in the blob credentials and blob configuration. So I'm using Azure right now. So that's the reason you will see blob credentials and blob configuration. So I'm just passing in the Azure's blob credential and blob configuration. So this will give me a handle to the storage service. Now, once I get handle to the storage service, I can do a list all to get all the routes associated. So the abstraction that we've used is called root. So root maps to a bucket in S3 and a container in Azure Blob. So it's going to list all the routes. So when I say list all, it's going to list all the roots available, and I can dump the value right here. So that's the first piece. Then what I have here is a file name called adobe.jpg, and there's a key associated, key1. Now I'm trying to upload this onto the storage service. So there's a storage service.root, and there's an upload request. There's a source file and a key. So I'll just pass adobe.jpg and key1, and I'll do a root.upload. Okay, so I got the root handle here. So this is this is my container called root POC12 that's available on Azure that I've created, and I got handled to that to the container, and I'm doing an upload file. So when I do a root.upload file, it will upload onto onto Azure's service, onto Azure's blob. It's as simple as that. So this is extremely productive, guys. So if you can notice, I just have a simple cloud service at the beginning, and I can do a .root to get access to the root and do an upload file. So clearly the most productive solution when compared to any other computation out there, bring in PHP, Node.js, or anything like that. So we are the most productive solution when compared to other technologies out there. And the biggest differentiator is it's multi-cloud. So it can work across AWS and Azure. All I have to do is, instead of this blob credential, if I pass in the S3 credentials, I'm going to get a storage service that maps to AWS and not Azure anymore. So that is the power of what you're seeing here. So I can again do a root.listAll to list all the entries available in this particular container. And I can also do a prefix. So I can just have a simple example here. I have a prefix called K. So it'll list all the keys available starting with K. And there's a download request as well. So there's a root.download file to download all the files available. So I'll just run this and show you. It's a really simple example. So it's just trying to upload a file onto storage, so onto Azure blob. So though it's called s3.cfm, it's currently working on Azure. So it's making that request and getting the response back. As you can see, there is one container on Azure called root object, and I'm trying to upload this. Upload was successful. It's going to list all the keys available, and then it's going to list all the keys with a prefix as well. Here, since I had K as my prefix, it's going to list key1 as well. So as simple as that. Now, as I said, if I have to change it to Azure or change from Azure to AWS, all I have to do is just provide S3 credentials. So these are some of the variables that I have defined in my application CFC. So I'm just using that here. So it has the corresponding credentials associated. So the same code will work across AWS and Azure with just a simple swap from an AWS credential to an Azure credential. So this works across all the services that we have defined. So that's the storage service. So quickly moving on to various other services. All right. So that's the storage service. So similarly, as I said, we have NoSQL support as well. There is built-in integration with MongoDB and DynamoDB. So MongoDB, it's this document-based NoSQL database, one of the most popular databases, NoSQL databases out there. And AWS has this document-based, it's a key value and document-based NoSQL database that AWS supports. So we support both MongoDB and DynamoDB from AWS. So let me just quickly show you some code for both Mongo as well as Dynamo. Okay. So quickly looking at MongoDB, I have a demo.cfm. So I have a Mongo service. So this is a built-in service. So I'm trying to get Cosmos as my data source. So I've defined a data source, and it's trying to get a DB from my Cosmos data source. So this is actually connecting to Azure's Cosmos DB. So that's why you see Cosmos. So Azure has a built-in MongoDB supported version. So you can either install Mongo on-prem, or you can go to the cloud as well. So it works across the board. That's the nice thing about this Mongo service. So I'm trying to use Azure's Mongo service here. So I'm trying to create a collection, then I'm trying to just drop to make sure that everything is dropped, and I'm doing an insert. As I said, it's a document-based database, so it works based on JSON documents. So I'm passing in JSON, a structured JSON key value pair here, and it's going to insert this particular record into MongoDB. So I can also insert many. So when I do a collection or insert many, it's going to insert multiple records into MongoDB. Okay, so this is again a really productive interface into MongoDB. So if you're using any kind of MongoDB today, this will make it super simple. Or if you're planning to use MongoDB going forward, this will make it extremely simple as well. So similarly, we support all the functions. So basically there's a find, for each, skip, limit. You can convert it to an array, all of that. You can. So the find works. So I'm trying to find a particular enrollment number here, or I'm basically trying to find the first one that matches. I can update one, update many. All of these built-in functions are supported, and it's like a native interface to MongoDB from within ColdFusion. So this is what it is. It's an extremely powerful solution, an interface to MongoDB. So that's MongoDB. So quickly moving on to AWS's DynamoDB as well. So you have it here. So Dynamo test. So that's the various credentials. I'll just quickly skip that. So I'm trying to delete. So as I said, this is also both a key value as well as a document-based database. So it has a schema associated. So I'm trying to create a movie schema. So there's various title. So title is a hash key type and an year associated. So there's a title and an year. So those are the two things in my key schema. And there's attributes as well, which is title and year. So all these are basic capabilities available in DynamoDB. So if you look at DynamoDB, all of this is available now. You can access that using ColdFusion with a really productive interface. So you're trying to create a table, list tables, insert item into a table. So pass in this and it'll insert an item into the table. The nice thing is ColdFusion can do type inference. With other technologies like Node.js or PHP or anything like that, you will have to specifically pass the type every time. Now, since it's a native interaction between ColdFusion and DynamoDB, so ColdFusion can infer the types as well. So you don't have to necessarily pass the type for every single operation, whereas with other technologies, you do have to pass a type. So this is how easy it is. Now, when I run this, let me just run this DynamoDB real quick. So go back to DynamoDB, Dynamo test. So it'll go ahead and run. So this is actually working on the cloud. So it's making call to AWS in a specific region and then getting data back from DynamoDB. So this is how it works. It's taking some time, so because it's making a call to the cloud and then getting the results back. So while we are waiting for that, I'll just continue to show you the other things that I have. So that's NoSQL. Similarly, we have messages and notification. We do have native support for SQS and SNS as well, simple queue service and simple notification service. SQS is basically a publish, so SQS is basically a producer consumer kind of a thing, whereas SNS is publish subscribe. So you have topics, and it's like one to many. So SNS is one to many. So SQS and SNS is from AWS, and similarly Azure has Azure Service Bus. So we have support for both of these, and as I said, the same code works across SQS and Azure Service Bus, or SNS or Azure Service Bus. So that's the nice thing about this multi-cloud solution that we have. Looks like there's a lot of discussion happening. Anyway, we'll take a look at that later on. So that's the messages and notification across Azure Service Bus as well as across AWS and Azure. Okay, so that's so let me just quickly show you this as well, SNS or SQS. So if you go to message operations, cloud service, SQS, so you just need to pass in the SQS credentials and configuration, and you can create a queue and then operate on the queue. So you can add messages to the queue, send a message to the queue, receive a message from the queue. So again, simple stuff. So the same code, so if you notice, the same code is working across will work across SQS, which is AWS's queue service, across and Azure service, which is Service Bus. So I'm passing the Service Bus credentials. As I said, it's the same code that can work across Azure and AWS. Again, very productive interface, and you get the same functionality across two clouds. So I'll not go into the details here, but I think you get a sense. So that's the cloud interface that we will have going forward. As I said, we are also focusing on serverless. There will be a tool using which you can build a ColdFusion Lambda runtime, and using which you can package your code and run it on Lambda as well as a serverless deployment. So this is coming up as well. We don't have it have as available yet, but we are working on it, and we'll have it available before the final launch. So that's cloud. Similarly, modernization. So with a significant focus on modernization as well. There are a whole range of language improvements that we did in the recent update. So this was done just a few months ago. ColdFusion 2018 now has support for a whole range of language improvements, including Lambdas or the fat arrow operator. So I'll just quickly talk about it. So all the code samples that you see here is available in this fiddle URL. So for those of you who don't know what fiddle is, there is something called a CF fiddle using which you can run ColdFusion snippets on the browser. So it's available on cffiddle.org. So this all the code snippets associated with this latest improvements that we did, language improvements that we did with ColdFusion 2018 as an update is available. So all these examples you will see in this fiddle URL as well. So we'll post the recording of this as well. And that's where you can access all these examples. So quickly, let me just show you what we did with Lambda or fat arrow operator. So we are constantly trying to push the limits of what ColdFusion or CFML can accomplish. And with 2018 through an update, we now support arrow functions as well. So just quickly show you what an arrow function is. So what you see here is a closure, right? So closure is nothing but an inline function. So there's a function called mul_op here. There's a function which takes two arguments, a and b, and it's returning a star b, which is nothing but a multiplied by. Now Lambda or the fat arrow operator is nothing but a shorthand for a closure. So all you have to do is just say mul is equal to just the parameter list of parameters here, and use the fat arrow operator to just say a star b. So this entire thing, this tiny one-line statement is equivalent to this. So we support this fat arrow or the Lambda operator in ColdFusion 2018 itself. So there are a lot of interesting use cases for Lambda. So for instance, if there's a filter, you can just define a Lambda right here and then do a filter. So there is a filter operation on this array. So I have an array of superheroes like Iron Man, Hulk from Avengers and Justice League as well. So this is trying to filter only members from the Avengers superhero. So you can just do a Lambda and use the fat arrow operator and just return the value. So it's as simple as that. So Lambdas are really powerful, and we now have access to that in ColdFusion 2018 itself. So this is not something that's coming up in the next version, but something that you already have access to. So similarly, Lambdas can also return another Lambda. So this is one such example. So I'll not get into the detail, but what you see here is for array initialization, I'm using a Lambda and passing values to extract array elements. So what you see here is there is a Lambda being defined, which takes an argument 1, and it's returning another Lambda. So this is like a Lambda returning a Lambda. So all of that complicated usage of Lambda is also possible. So I just wanted to show you that. So this is returning another Lambda, which is doing nothing but returning argument 1 plus argument 2. So I have a second argument as well, which does a star. So basically, when you do an array 4 of the second element, so if you do the second element, so this particular Lambda will be invoked, which returns another Lambda, and it does argument 1 into argument 2 or multiply by argument 2. So you will get 2 star 3 6. So the 6 will be the value of this Lambda. So that's just a quick look into how Lambdas can be used in ColdFusion. So with ColdFusion 2020 though, we will have a new version of CF script called CF script 2.0. So we do have support for everything within CF script today, but we do realize that it is painful. For instance, what we have here is, the code snippet I have here is, there's a CF HTTP. This still looks like a tag, unfortunately. So though we support it, it still looks like a tag, and it actually looks like a function call to me. But it's not a function call because it's actually a tag equivalent within script. So it looks messy. So there's a child tag. It looks like a function call within a function call, which really does not. So what we're doing is we're coming up with a full-fledged CF script 2.0, a completely different version of CF script, which is uniform, ECMAScript compliant across all the functionalities available in ColdFusion. So something like this. So potentially it could look something like a new http.addParam.send instead of looking like a function invocation or a tag equivalent. So we'll do this across the board. not just for this HTTP functionality. So you will see us coming up with a new version. We'll also discuss about all this in the pre-release forum. So make sure you sign up for the pre-release for the next version, which will soon be out. I'll talk about this at the very end. So that's CF Script 2.0. Similarly, we have a lot of additional features that you can start testing out once we get into alpha. We are very close to alpha for the next version. So if you've not signed up yet, sign up for the pre-release. I'll show the survey link at the end of my presentation as well. So if you've not signed up, sign up now. I'll show you the link as well for the survey. Now there are a whole bunch of additional new features. So there will be an identity operator. Parallelism is also being introduced. So you can parallelize a few operations. There's inbuilt Java integration as well. So a lot of interesting stuff. I'll not get into each of these, but I'll encourage you to sign up for the pre-release and explore this yourself. I just wanted to give you a sense of where we are headed. Some significant changes, some radical differences into how the previous versions and the next version will look like. So we are extremely excited about what's coming up for the future of the ColdFusion. I'm sure most of you are too, looking at the initial responses that I got. So I strongly encourage you to sign up for the pre-release and then start exploring and give us your valuable feedback. So those are the various additional features on the language side. So that's on the modernization. So on the productivity side, as I said, there will be significant focus on productivity. So this is the comparison. So just take a look. So what you see here is code for interacting with Amazon's Q service in Java. And this is the corresponding equivalent in CFML, the same functionality here. So such a simple code when compared to what is available in Java. So clearly productivity will continue to be a significant part of what we're doing. As I said, there will be significant saving of setup time as well, because we will now have a scriptable configuration through the CF setup tool that I spoke to you about. Centralized configuration, perhaps at a future version, but we are focusing on that as well. Code scan to build a runtime. It's like building your own runtime and integration into DevOps. So all this will contribute significantly to the productivity of ColdFusion 2020. Similarly, the performance. So it's not just breaking ColdFusion into multiple modules. There will be drastic reduction in the startup time. The base startup time that I saw today was under 5 seconds. So I'm sure most of you have seen like 30 seconds of startup time or perhaps a minute of startup time for the new server, for the existing server. Now ColdFusion 2020, at least the one that I saw today, the bare runtime starts up in like under 5 seconds. So and it's still work in progress. So you will see us doing much better when it comes to startup time, and it will be an extremely nimble runtime, less resources so that you can scale better as well. So that's the focus on performance, and obviously security as well. So there will be built-in integration with single sign-on. So there'll be SAML integration available with ColdFusion 2020. So you can explore this as well once you sign up for the pre-release. So that is pretty much what I had. I wanted to leave some time for any kind of questions that you may have. So that's the pre-release participation survey. So if you have not signed up yet, this is your opportunity. So that's the link, surveymonkey.com/r/CFPR2019. So I think it's 2020. I'm not sure why I changed it. Why I didn't change it. It's 2020. Let me just check this once. Just want to be really sure. Yeah, that's the survey. So it's 2020, guys. So please make a note of that. So surveymonkey.com/r/CFPR2020. So that's the URL that you can access for signing up for the pre-release. So I'll just leave this for a few seconds so that you can make a note of the URL and sign up for the pre-release. Actually, I can also put it on the chat window. Let me just do that. Okay, so what are we signing up for? So this is for the pre-release. Okay, I don't think I was clear enough. So this is for the pre-release. So you can sign up. We will soon have an alpha going out. So alpha is a really early version of ColdFusion 2020. So we'll soon have an alpha going out somewhere by the end of this month or early next month. So you can sign up. So to sign up for the alpha, you need to participate in this survey. So this is where you express your intent saying that, hey, I want to sign up for alpha. Okay, and you will get an invite post signing up. So once we are ready with alpha, you will get an invite in your inbox asking you to start accessing the pre-release forum. So how do you get into the pre-release? So this is the answer. This is the URL using which you can sign up. surveymonkey.com/r/CFPR2020. So that's what you're signing up for. Any kind of your feedback, as I said, is extremely valuable. And as you noticed, there are a lot of interesting things coming up in CF 2020. You can sign up and start exploring that and give us your valuable feedback and some early feedback as well. So that's the pre-release participation survey. We don't have a lot of time left. I'm guessing some of the questions that you had is already being answered by some of the other folks from Adobe. If you do have any kind of questions, do let me know. Anything you can mention about licensing in a microservices context? So just to let you know, Kurt, so it's not like an a la carte kind of a license. That will not happen. So for instance, if you're asking if will there be a licensing wherein which I can just pay for the PDF or some other service that I need, no, that will not happen. So this is purely from a licensing point of view, and microservices, nothing much will change. It is still the licensing for the entire server. It's just that for the runtime, you can choose to use what services you need. Murphy says, will the video be available online? Yes, that's the idea. So that's the reason I was recording this session as well. Yes, it will be available. So you just need to sign up again, I guess, to get access to the recording, and you will get access to the entire recording as well. Yes, that's correct. More about, okay, Kurt says it was more about containers spread across multiple hosts. Yes, so licensing will obviously be more friendly towards containers because we have such a big focus on all of that. Yes. At what license level will be able to use microservice containers? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Anthony. So it will be available at both enterprise and standard as well. How many instances? So for 2020, none of those licensing stuff has been decided yet. It's, as you can see, it's really early. Okay, so I don't have an answer to how many instances per standard for 2020, all of that. So that's not decided yet. Scott has a question on, so existing monolithic applications will have to be rewritten in the microservice. Okay, I'm sorry if I gave that impression. No, you don't have to. Existing applications will continue to work. It'll be 100% backward compatible. Yes, there are some radical shifts happening, but you can choose to get all the modules that you need and get a backward compatible version of 2020 that works just as well with monolithic applications as well. So I want to be really, I want to emphasize on that. It will be 100% backward compatible. So yes, you might choose to install it in a different way, but everything will continue to work as is, fully backward compatible. What is CF's serverless plan? How is this going to work? So basically, again, if it's about licensing, that's not decided yet. But the whole idea is we will have a tool using which you can basically get a Lambda runtime. If it's AWS, you get Lambda runtime. If it's Azure function, you'll get an Azure function runtime. You can add your code, get a packaged Lambda runtime. You can deploy it on AWS Lambda or Azure function to get your functionalities working. Is the tag or CF script based backward compatible? Absolutely. So that's the reason we're coming up with a new version as well. CF script 2.0, existing stuff will continue to work. Only if you choose to use CF script 2.0, that's when you will get CF script 2.0. Otherwise, no. Mart has a question. Are CFs Flash capabilities being removed given Flash goes away. Yes, that will most likely happen, Mark. So we will remove that because it doesn't make sense to have it anymore. Most likely we will remove that as well. Jeff says, what's a realistic ETA for production release? We don't discuss that because there's so much of work still pending with this version. Yeah, I can say that it will be released this year, but there's still a significant amount of time because we are not even alpha yet. Okay, so that should give you a good sense that it's not coming anytime really soon. We'll start with alpha, get a lot of feedback, go make those changes back, post your valuable feedback, and then come out with a final release. That involves quite a few months actually. So 2021, 2022, hopefully not. So this is still 2020. It should be sometime this year. Oracle Java license included with Java version required. Steve has a question on Oracle Java license. As you already know, ColdFusion supports Oracle Java license. So if you're using any of your functionality, ColdFusion functionality with Oracle Java, that is licensed anyway because Adobe has a contract with Oracle now. Yes, if you do have any kind of code name suggestions, feel free to let us know. Jim, come on, can't do that. Phoenix, that's interesting. Orion. Okay, a lot of interesting code names coming up. So yeah, please keep them coming, guys. And thanks a lot for being a part of this. I'll continue to encourage you to be a part of the pre-release. We will soon have a pre-release, so make sure you're part of it and sign up for the pre-release. Thanos, okay, interesting. McFusion. I like the names. Zeus, Michael, that we've already used for ColdFusion 10. Great. So thanks a lot, everyone. As you can see, we have some really nice plans coming up for the ColdFusion. A lot of groundbreaking stuff. So the last statement that I want to make is, as you can see, Adobe is more than ever committed to the product. So we will continue to invest in the product and make some significant improvements going forward as well. So we definitely want to make sure that you're successful in the next decade as well. And ColdFusion will enable you to do that in the next decade as well. Thanks a lot. Yes, the recording will be made available. Thanks a lot, everyone. You guys have a great rest of the day.